Joining me on the line right now is the former governor of New Mexico, Gary Johnson. He was a Republican in the Michigan primary and was a Republican, but then he decided he wants to run for president of the United States as a Libertarian. And so you would think that he should be on our Michigan ballot, give the voters a choice. If they want to vote Libertarian, fine. But Ruth Johnson, our Secretary of State, essentially said no. And the reason why is because Mr. Governor Johnson didn't withdraw from the Republican primary in time. He missed a deadline by, get this, 3 minutes back in December. 3 minutes. He was late, apparently. And the Secretary of State, Ruth Johnson, said, nope. Under state law, you cannot be on the ballot as a Libertarian coming up in November. Joining me on the line right now is the former Governor Gary Johnson. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Charlie. And as you're telling that story, it really stinks. I'll tell you what. I got off the airplane in Oakland on that day and was told that here's what we had to do in Michigan. Well, why do we have to do this in Michigan? We're not on the ballot. We don't want to be on the ballot. Well, actually, you're automatically on the ballot, and you have to file a piece of paper that says that you don't want to be on the ballot. So here it is. We're chasing around in Oakland, trying to meet. In Oakland, that would have been 1 o'clock, I believe. Anyway, we're chasing around to do this at 1 o'clock, and we literally go from one place, and we are running at the very end to get, because it has to be notarized, and then it has to be faxed, and people are out to lunch in California. And we end up filing this, and I can't make this up, but we make it by 1 minute, and we've got 4 people with us. So people are on the phone trying to find a notary, trying to find the fax, being able to send it out, and we file it with 1 minute to go. And it's just crazy. It's just nuts. Yeah. And then, of course, we received notification that actually it was 3 minutes late. Well,
that's crazy. I mean, that's you know what? That's craziness, Governor. So now you sued the state of Michigan. You sued the Secretary of State. Now, I tell you, we just had, I don't know if you're aware of this, Governor, but we just had a case here in Michigan where, get this, people gathered over 200,000 petition signatures to challenge a fairly controversial emergency manager law. The board of our canvassers that reviewed the petition said that, okay, you got enough petitions to get this on the ballot, but the font size of the letters was 1/132nd of an inch too small or too big, I don't remember, and you're not on the ballot. That's the craziness. Craziness.
I'll tell you, there is a recourse for this, and that's to vote those people out of office. It's crazy. That is just crazy, and that's what we do. That's why we can go and vote. And just at the base of all this is just unfairness. It's my understanding that first of all, in my particular case, this is a law that has never been used, and that John Anderson, when he ran as a Republican, actually was in the primary. I wasn't in the primary, but John Anderson actually was in the primary, and he ended up running as an independent, and that didn't seem to be an issue. So I think that it actually does have precedent that this is.
That's crazy.
Frustrating, vindictive. It's silly. It's politics. It's politics at its worst.
Well, here's one of the reasons that they don't want you on the ballot, Governor Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate now for President of the United States, is because the polls that are in Michigan show Barack Obama and Mitt Romney really neck and neck. It is so close. So a lot of people think that by your candidacy, a Libertarian, you may siphon some votes away from perhaps Romney. And that would give Barack Obama the election here in Michigan. Do you sense that that's why they're truly keeping you off the ballot, Gary Johnson?
Well, somebody is making that decision, but it shouldn't be somebody. It should be voters. And Charlie, I'll tell you what we're planning on doing is that the Libertarian Party has a place on the ballot in Michigan. It's just that it's not me. So we do have a substitute lined up from Austin, Texas, whose name is, and he's a libertarian, and he has a radio show in Austin, Texas.
Don't tell me his name is Gary Johnson.
His name is Gary E. Johnson, as my name is Gary E. Johnson. So this is our fallback position, and that would be a completely legitimate position. It's just that you'd be voting for Gary E. Johnson of Austin. And if it turns out this way, we're going to try and have some fun with this. Look, we don't have to change the bumper stickers. We don't have to change the yard signs. And by voting for me, Gary E. Johnson, you're really voting for Gary E. Johnson, governor of New Mexico, former governor of New Mexico.
That's incredible. That's seriously great. Well, do you think you can win Michigan? Do you think there are enough libertarians here in Michigan, Governor Gary E. Johnson, that you can make a go of it here?
Well, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think I could win. And the winning scenario is polling at 15%. And being in the national debates against Obama and Romney. If that happens, I could go down in flames, but I'm thinking anything could happen if that happens. But I have to poll at 15%. Right now, when my name is in the polls, and Zogby and PPP are the only polling organizations that are polling me, and they're not polling me consistently, but it's anywhere from a low of 6 to a high of 15. I also think when people recognize that there will be only 3 candidates on the ballot in all 50 states, that will also be a big push, that there really is a third choice, that there is only one other candidate besides Obama and Romney that have achieved this full ballot access. That's really one of the really important things, too, about Michigan, is this notion of genuinely being on the ballot in all 50 states. Gary E. Johnson will be on the ballot in all 50 states.
It's also kind of funny that you, Gary E. Johnson, are suing Ruth Johnson. No relation, right? No.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Real quick, there's just one procedural. Then we get to some of the merits of your candidacy. But there is an option, I understand, you correct me if I'm wrong, that you could do a write-in campaign if you get about 30,000 signatures, but you got to do it by July 19th. Is that an option? Is that true?
Well, yes, there are other options, but they're very costly. And as governor of New Mexico, I signed legislation making it as easy as possible for third parties to be on the ballot, just believing that that's kind of at the heart of democracy, is giving people choices. So, these other options that are available, they're very costly. And who's to say that we use the wrong font size when we hand out those petitions?
Yeah, get ready for that font size comparison. It's coming up. Let me get you on some of the merits, Governor Gary Johnson, Libertarian candidate for president of the United States, although whether or not he may be on the Michigan ballot is still up in the air. What do you think about the Affordable Care Act? How do you think the Supreme Court's going to rule, and how should the Supreme Court rule, Governor?
Well, I hope they rule it unconstitutional, just on the basic notion that the government cannot dictate what you and I buy. Okay, it's health care today. Is it an automobile tomorrow? And I think that it should be ruled unconstitutional. I'm the only candidate running for president that wants to get out of Afghanistan immediately. Let's bring the troops home. I'm the only candidate that doesn't want to bomb Iran. I'm the only candidate that is promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress immediately taking office. I really think that we are going to experience a monetary collapse unless we get our spending in line. So part of that is repealing President Obama's health care. Part of that is repealing Republicans' Medicaid Part D, prescription health care, prescription drug benefits, that at that time was the largest entitlement program ever passed in the history of this country, and that was Republicans at the helm. So Republicans spend way too much money, and when it comes to civil liberties, you know what? Obama could do a lot better on civil liberties. Romney's about a 0 on civil liberties, and Obama is a 0 when it comes to dollars and cents.
What about on the civil liberties side of it? I mean, legalization of drugs, would that be part of the program? Maybe medical marijuana and from a federal program, Governor?
Well, I'm the only candidate that wants to end the drug wars. I support legalizing marijuana. I think we're at a tipping point on this issue. I think it's going to happen in Colorado. It's on the ballot in November to regulate marijuana like alcohol. It's at a tipping point. Let's control it. Let's regulate it. Let's tax it. Look, didn't we learn our lessons when it came to the prohibition of alcohol, where people died in the street because disputes were being played out with machine guns rather than in the courts? Look,
I think you may get some traction on that one. There are a lot of people that say that. Listen, Chicago just passed yesterday a decriminalization on marijuana in Chicago, so it's not a far-fetched idea.
Yeah, and the issue with decriminalization is it turns its back on more than half the problem, which is the marketplace itself. Let's look to the border for the marketplace. 40,000 deaths south of the border over the last 4 years. This is a prohibition phenomenon. These are disputes that are being played out with guns rather than the courts. Legalize marijuana so that if it's decriminalized, look, somebody's still got to sell it, and that's still going to be against the law. So if we don't completely legalize it, we're going to still have about more than half the problem that currently exists.
Governor Gary Johnson is with us. He's a Libertarian candidate for President of the United States. What about same-sex marriage? Is that time we legalize that?
Well, it is, and I do believe that it is constitutionally guaranteed, on par with the civil rights in the 60s, that this is a constitutional issue and that marriage equality is guaranteed under the Constitution.
What about are you trying to court the Ron Paul voters? Are those voters, would they be attracted to your campaign?
Well, given that Ron Paul and I are saying the same things on all these issues, I hope that's the case. But we'll see how all that pans out. And reason for continuing to run for President of the United States. Look, I don't see a difference between the two candidates that are running right now. And I don't mean that there aren't differences, but for the most part, I think that whichever one of those two were to get elected, that government would be bigger and more intrusive 4 years from now. I think we need major change in this country right now. I think Ron Paul was serving it up. I think I was serving it up. I'm going to continue to serve it up, and there is a third choice, and it's a viable third choice.
I just want to know, I think one of the best lines of the debates ever, of the whole season, was when you said that your dog has more shovel-ready projects than the president. How's your dog doing? Are you still making? Is your dog still making shovel-ready projects?
Well, those are my next-door neighbor's two dogs.
Okay,
all those shovel-ready projects. And Shirley, talking about unfairness, I was excluded from Republican debates by CNN because I wasn't at 2% in A, B, and C poll. Charlie, I wasn't in A, B, and C poll. How do you get into the debate if you're not in the polls? And then CNN polls me about 10 months ago. They poll me for the first time they poll me. They poll me at 2%, which ties me with Kane, which puts me ahead of Santorum, puts me ahead of Huntsman. After that poll, they dropped my name from their polls. My name never reappeared. They gave us no explanation whatsoever. So this whole notion of politics and being excluded and what goes on behind closed doors, it's not as open a process as we'd like to think it is. It's not at all. It's being manipulated. It's being manipulated in ways that none of us recognize.
Well, let's get the voices heard. I mean, let's bring it all together. Everybody should have a voice, and on this show we try to give everybody a voice and let the people decide. Governor, we've got to get you back on here when it gets closer to the election, and we'll find out how the court rules on your case. Governor Gary E. Johnson suing the state of Michigan because he was 3 minutes late in filing to get off the Republican ballot, so that now he can run as a Libertarian. It's called the sore loser rule, by the way, in Michigan. Governor, you're not a sore loser, are you?
I'm not a sore loser, and then keep in mind, somewhere in cyberspace goes the 3 minutes. We did. It was 1 minute. File it on time, but cyberspace, I guess, took up to 3 minutes.
Yeah, you say 1 minute, 3 minutes. Again, we'll have to see how the Ruth Johnson, and I'm very curious to see where this goes. This will be fascinating. But Governor, all the best to you in the campaign. Again, Governor Gary E. Johnson, former governor of New Mexico, now a Libertarian candidate for President of the United States. Governor, I appreciate it very much. Thanks for being with us today.
I'll look forward to being back on with you. Thank you.
You got it. All right.